The real story emerges on yesterday's Twitter outage. OpenAI uses AI to combat reward hacking, and Intel's future seems to be up in the air with the potential repeal of the CHIPS Act. Welcome to #Trending. I'm your host, Jim Love. Let's get into it. It turns out that a pro-Palestinian hacktivist group, the Dark Storm team, has claimed responsibility for the distributed denial of service attack on X or Twitter on Monday of this week. Elon Musk had initially reported that the massive attack came from IP addresses from around Ukraine. However, cybersecurity experts cautioned against drawing conclusions based solely on IP data. Attackers often use compromised devices and proxy networks to mask their true locations. But Dark Storm emerged as the group taking credit for the incident, posting their claim on their new Telegram channel. And if this is true, it marks the resurgence of this dangerous group after a period of inactivity. Established in 2023, the Dark Storm team is recognized for conducting cyber attacks against entities perceived to support Israel. Their operations have predominantly involved what are called distributed denial of service attacks, or DDoS attacks, aiming to overwhelm targeted systems with excessive traffic and rendering them inaccessible to legitimate users. Prior to their attack on X, the group had been inactive following the shutdown of their Telegram channel. But since reactivating, the Dark Storm team has targeted various organizations across multiple countries, including in the United States, the Los Angeles International Airport, in Israel, the Port of Haifa, and in the United Arab Emirates, the Ministry of Defense. These attacks have successfully disrupted critical infrastructures and highlighted the group's capability to impact essential services. So despite Musk's suggestion that Ukraine was somehow responsible for the attack, there's no evidence of that at this point. But what Musk failed to talk about was what some analysts are reporting, and that is it appears that some of X's origin servers were not adequately secured behind the company's DDoS protection services. Such an oversight would have allowed the botnet to target these servers very effectively. X says they have since addressed these vulnerabilities and bolstered their defenses against future incidents. But this leaves us with the potential resurgence of Dark Storm, with their focus on high-profile platforms and critical infrastructure. It would be a good time for the U.S. government to bolster its staffing of agencies responsible for protecting critical infrastructure. Except that the same Elon Musk's chainsaw staff reductions have, you guessed it, fired most of the staff who were recently brought on to battle this type of attack. It's one thing when you can't tweet. It's quite another when you can't get safe drinking water. OpenAI has released a report addressing what they call the challenge of reward hacking in reinforcement learning models. We've all heard a lot about reinforcement learning. It's been one of the things that's been transforming the results of AI models. But it turns out that this training can be defeated if AI systems exploit loopholes in their objectives to achieve undeserved rewards, or what we might call cheating. To counter this, OpenAI has proposed using chain-of-thought monitoring. This technique follows the AI's reasoning process to detect misbehavior. And this is done using another AI to monitor the AI in training. By analyzing the reasoning steps of AI models, this chain-of-thought monitoring has proven to be very effective in identifying reward hacking compared to monitoring the actions of the AI using standard methods. Notably, even a less advanced model like GPT-4 successfully detected misbehavior of a much more sophisticated model. But now, there's a new concern that AI models might learn to conceal their misaligned actions from the other AI to evade detection, a phenomenon termed obfuscated reward hacking. We might call it very clever lying. We've seen examples of this in other models where the AI learns to hide its intentions during training, and then it has the undesirable behaviors when it goes live. So it turns out that a balance is needed. Excessive optimization pressure on chain of thought can lead AI models to hide their true intentions while still engaging in undesirable behaviors. As a result, developers are having to calculate what they're calling a monitorability tax, deploying less optimized but more transparent models to maintain effective oversight and get the right result. The conclusion of the report? While chain of thought monitoring is a promising approach to enhancing AI safety, it's crucial to ensure that models do not learn to game the system by hiding their true intentions. And if you're wondering what to make of all this, that's okay, because basically what we're saying is there's some underlying behavior that is leading to deception and hiding undesirable behaviors. You can affect some of these with training and discipline, but if you train or discipline too hard, the AI will tend towards hiding its undesirable behaviors during training. Are you sure we've invented AI or teenagers? Intel, once the dominant force in U.S. semiconductor manufacturing, is now facing a crisis that could affect its survival. The Trump administration is rumored to be moving to claw back billions in CHIPS Act funding, a critical lifeline for the struggling company, while simultaneously purging key personnel responsible for administering the CHIPS program. The developments raise serious questions about Intel's future and the broader U.S. effort to regain semiconductor leadership. The Chips and Sciences Act, passed in 2022, was meant to revive domestic semiconductor manufacturing, with $52 billion in funding allocated. Intel, in particular, relied on this financial support to fund its turnaround, securing $8.5 billion in grants for new chip plants and research and development investments. Without this support, Intel faces an uphill battle against dominant Asian manufacturers like Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company, or TSMC, and Samsung. TSMC has agreed to build some factories in the U.S., but the Taiwan government is reported to be making TSMC keep its most advanced technology in Taiwan to ensure that the U.S. will keep protecting Taiwan rather than see this technology fall into Chinese hands. But to compete, Intel desperately needs to rebuild and advance its own new capabilities. President Trump is pushing to repeal the CHIPS Act, calling it an unnecessary giveaway to corporations. And if successful, this would strip Intel and perhaps other U.S. chip makers of the capital they need to advance their technology to remain competitive. With billions of planned projects at risk, Intel's ability to execute its recovery strategy could be compromised. Making matters worse, the administration has gutted the CHIPS Program Office, the team overseeing the semiconductor subsidies. Led by former investment banker Michael Grimes, the purge involved humiliating testing, asking for IQ tests, requiring staff to solve math problems, and interviews designed to assess staff loyalty. This resulted in the termination of entire teams, and the firings have disrupted the program's ability to distribute funds already promised, adding even more uncertainty to an already precarious situation. For Intel, losing CHIPS Act funding isn't just a setback, it could be fatal. The company has struggled with manufacturing delays, rising costs, and declining market share. The CHIPS Act was a last hope to regain relevance in an industry where TSMC and Samsung continue to widen their lead. If the U.S. pulls back its semiconductor investments, Intel may be left with no choice but to scale down its ambitions, potentially losing its place as a global chip leader. TSMC, chip maker to the world, remains in an equally precarious position in Taiwan, with its most advanced technology vulnerable to a Chinese seizure of the island. And Trump's threat to impose tariffs still remains problematic. Most manufacturers claim that it's going to be next to impossible to deal with this because most chips are put into machines offshore and brought back. It's going to be a massive effort to be able to even keep track of these tariffs. That's our show for today. Thanks to all of you who are continuing to donate at buymeacoffee.com/techpodcast. We are at about half of our objective, but you've been coming on strong and we really appreciate it. You can still go to buymeacoffee.com/techpodcast. I'm your host, Jim Love. Have a wonderful Wednesday.